Yes. There we go.
go.
Can I just
There
ask
you
you
go.
about your perimenopause experiences, Esther? I
Yeah.
almost forgot to press record. So there we go.
I call those craft moments.
Yes.
Can't remember a
yes.
fucking thing. Yes, craft
Give me your
moments.
mom.
Yes. Like when you
I love
walk into a room and you're like, what the hell was I here for? Wait, what? And then you leave and then you're like, right, go back in.
My whole experience with you so far has been a craft moment. So I apologize.
It's been a craft moment. We all have those. I get like the dropsies too. I notice at different points where I just drop and break things. So, or I just drop things, period. Like a whole dish of, we went out to dinner. This is just a side note, but we went out to dinner. We took my mother-in-law out for her birthday and we had leftover mussels in tomato sauce. Very important detail. She's like, you should put those in a bag. I was like, oh no, I got this. Of course I drop them. They splatter all over my boots, my pants, my handbag, my coat. My husband was like, what just happened? I was like, nothing to see here, folks. Keep moving. And I'm just like wiping myself off with the dog towels in the car. So perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So perimenopause, what was my experience and what it is for a lot of women is, I really noticed two things. One was a real increase in irritability. The second half of my cycle, particularly 10 days out prior to my period being due. Mm-hmm. And the other was just absolutely craptastic sleep the second half of the cycle. And then, memory changes, having to pee more at night. You could be having, vaginal dryness, especially like before your period, a little achiness. This is the other thing I notice is I would, my lower back on my left side where I tend to get some tightness, that would worsen too. Prior to my cycle.
Like when I think of the vaginal stuff, I haven't had dryness, but I've had like itchiness and scratchiness. And the first thing I remember was just tampons started to bug me. I was like, oh, that, over your life, sometimes you put them in wrong or whatever. And I would think, oh, I guess I've got it in wrong. I've got it in wrong. But then now that I look back, it was the beginnings of that. And you said a little bit of vaginal dryness at certain times in your cycle. Like it doesn't just all of a sudden come on.
Correct. It can come on more cyclically at first, but I mean, for some women, it does come on. But yes, I noticed the switching over to the Diva Cup was really helpful because the tampons are very drying. And also what most women don't realize is that if you're not using organic tampons, you're actually exposing yourself to a lot of pesticides because cotton, and if it's not organic, it's actually a heavily sprayed crop with pesticides, and vaginally, it's a really vascular area. Things move quickly across the tissues and cross the barrier to your bloodstream. So I like the Diva Cup or any menstrual cup. I'm not brand specific because, you're just not exposing yourself to chemicals the way you are otherwise.
Yeah. I started using those underwear too. I just started liking the idea of going with the flow more when I was in my 40s. Like there was just something about I don't know, it just felt better.
And how did those work on like your heavy surge days? Because a lot of the women I treat, I mean, they're changing their tampons every hour. I would think that period underwear may not be enough. That would be like a backup plan when you have a pad and you're soaking through, every hour. What's your experience like?
Yeah, I never had those flooding periods. I have a friend right now who's experiencing that and experiencing the clotting you talk about in your book. Yeah. But I did always have at night, it was always very heavy. And when I started using those underwear, it never leaked ever. So they're awesome. It's very hard to conceptualize if you haven't tried them, how they would work. And then I was the same. I was like, those are dumb. And I always use those. I always use those as an example now when new things come along and I think they're dumb. Like now those curly hair ties, the ones that are twisted.
Like an old phone cord. Like an old phone cord.
I thought those were dumb too. And then my friend said, no, they don't kink your hair. And then, but the period underwear like that, they're incredibly absorbent. And I think probably people should give them a try. Like just try one of the super absorbent pairs. I don't know about the flooding though. I think that probably you'd want a Diva Cup and that. I think a Diva Cup and that would be a good combo.
would be great. And I feel like the period underwear would be great for teenage girls who maybe don't want to use a tampon, but don't want to use a pad either. I mean, I think they're really smart invention.
Yeah.
But
And they're cute. Yeah. They're good. Anyway, we got on that topic.
Anyway, we're riffing here. We're riffing on all things, period.
Okay. So one thing I was interested at the beginning of your book, you talked about, there's a lot of talk about menopause care and how we can't get good menopause care. And you talked about rampant negligence. I've never really heard it put in those terms. You had lots of examples in your book, but what sort of can you advise women to watch out for that would be considered negligence and how to handle it?
Yeah. And I think I called it medical gaslighting, which is really, I mean, it's funny. I felt like I made up the term, but I see it everywhere. So I must have read it and internalized it.
Right.
But medical gaslighting happens when you go to a doctor and you say, hey, you know what? Like, I have all these changes. Like, my sleep isn't as good as it used to be. I am such a witchy woman and so irritable and having these outrageous mood swings that I'm kind of like getting a little menopause going on. And I think it's my hormones. And the doctor says, no, that's just menopause, or that's just the way it is. Or they say, well, let me just put you on a birth control pill, or here's an IUD. Or one of my clients went to her doctor, her GYN, and she said, well, I'm happy to give you an IUD. What works for me is just Benadryl shots every night. And I thought, don't we want to do better for ourselves? Like, if I was a female gynecologist and didn't know how to treat my own menopause and was having symptoms, wouldn't I be curious and say, I think I can do better on the subject? It's fascinating to me. But the other spectrum too is I have so many women who come to me and they say, I almost burst into tears. My doctor was so ignorant. My doctor made me feel dumb, or said, like, you don't need hormones, or that's not going to work, or hormones are going to cause cancer. That is called lazy medicine. If your doctor, the whole reason why people constantly ask me, why did you get into menopause care? Because I started treating menopausal women when I was like in my 20s. Do you think I knew a damn thing about menopause? No. The only thing I knew about menopause was that my mother had a hysterectomy and had a couple hot flashes. That was all I knew. So I was like, I can't look women in the eye who need help and fail them. So therefore I need to go learn and understand how to treat menopausal women. And that's, if you don't find a doctor who is at least open to trying, open to working with other practitioners, or even better, referring you to a practitioner to do what you do, then it's real simple. Find a new doctor. Like, the only way we're going to change the system is when we directly demand change, because medical school is not teaching anything about menopause care, and they're probably not going to for a long time. The only people who are teaching menopause care are functional medicine doctors. And quite frankly, the labs where I run my tests have, many doctors there have mentored me over the years as well, at conferences, and it's really been a lot of self-learning. So, and looking at tons of research studies. So the way to change that's why I wrote this book. Honestly, you could literally hand it to your doctor and you can say, I've done my research, because my book has 20 pages of studies in the back. And no, they're not all perfect in design. Okay. I just want to put that out there. But let me tell you, if we're waiting for the perfect study to be designed, we're going to be waiting a long time. They're good enough. Plus, I've been doing this for 27 plus years now. I've got a lot of experience under my belt. Tell you this does work. So you could say to your doctor, hey, I have research studies done. I've researched this. This is where I'm at in my cycle. These are where, my cycling, these are my symptoms. And I really think I would be a great candidate. I really want to look into bioidenticals. Can you help me or refer me to someone else who can? Because that's how we're going to change the system. And when all of a sudden, when GYNs have empty waiting rooms because their patients have all gone to other doctors, then that's how we change the system. There's 6,000 women every day that go through menopause. If 6,000 women across the globe marched into their doctor's offices asking for alternatives, eventually doctors are going to hopefully scratch their heads and think, I should really learn more about this, or I should refer people elsewhere.
I'm always amazed though, just if the people who do know about menopause, like I was putting together a panel over here and I was talking to a gynecologist who I respect, who is very well known. And she said, who else is on the panel? And I said, well, I'm going to have this functional doctor on to talk about bioidenticals. And she said, oh no, I don't want to be on a panel. I don't believe in those at all. And I was killing myself laughing because I'm like, I know you're prescribing some patches and progesterone that are bioidentical. Like you don't, like I don't know. I'm kind of speechless about it because there's doctors who don't know that level. And in your book, you do go you're very specific about the difference between progestin and progesterone, the synthetic and the bioidenticals. Are you surprised that people who are in this space don't even know sort of the difference?
At this point, I'm sadly not surprised, but it's just, you know, I think they're not taught either, and they're not actively seeking out the information, which the information's all there. It's like when I became, I liken it to becoming a registered dietitian. I no longer belong to I'm still a credentialed dietitian, but I don't belong to the Dietetic Association anymore because they are in bed with Coca-Cola and sponsored by Big Ag and take money from all of these horrible companies that are making us fat and sick. And, you know, what I was taught, and I have a bachelor's and a master's in clinical nutrition and was not taught the majority of what I was taught so I could work in a hospital as a clinical dietitian, feeding people through IVs or tubes. I was not taught how to enlist real diet therapy and nutrient therapy and herbal therapy and hormonal therapy. That was not taught to me. And the dietitians would scoff at me when I would do clinical rounds in the hospital and I would show them research studies on nutrients and how important it was after surgery or a cardiac event. And I would just get the death stares. And that's why I left the hospital after 5 years, because I was like, I'm never going to go anywhere with this. And yeah, so I went and got certified in functional medicine and learned a whole lot more.
Well, this gap between the mainstream side, which you very succinctly described how it is influenced by industry and captured in a lot of cases. And I don't know that people realize that there's so much work done on that side to discredit what you're doing and what functional people are doing, that's a really confusing part of the menopause space. Like, can you just talk about that a little bit? Because, you know, some of the stuff I see on social media is just vilifying, like they, you know, sort of compounding pharmacies. I always joke, they make them sound as like Walter White style meth labs.
Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and there's a very prominent gynecologist who's authored this best-selling book and has been on major podcasts. And she totally discredits even the use of a B complex or bioidentical hormones. And I'm like, how are you solving these women's issues? I mean, yes, I do treat cancer patients who, you know, can't do hormones, and we have many workarounds, but the research is so conclusive that without proper hormone replenishment within the first 10 years of menopause, you're going to lose bone mass. You're going to increase your risk for heart disease and stroke and dementia and Alzheimer's. So how do you not, like, I was so pissed when I read these studies. I like looked at my husband, he was just watching me listening to lectures and going through studies. And I said, I'm so outraged that women don't have access to this, that no one is proactively saying, here are the benefits, risks are low. Let's look at your cancer history. Let's look at your methylation pathways. Let's even see if you're a candidate. And the benefits are so strong that many of the candidates that I treat who have cancer or are on estrogen blockers, their doctors have literally said to them, you know what? The cancer risk is low. Like, we've gotten all the cancer, or we've done your mastectomy and your hysterectomy. You would really benefit from hormones in spite of having cancer. And there's a great book on this that I list in my resources section called Estrogen Matters. It's a very important read for every woman out there. So, you know, the benefits are so strong. If even oncologists and doctors are signing up for it, like, can we all just stop and reassess our own limiting beliefs and like, just look at the science, take the emotion out of it. It's just hardcore science. I used to be deathly afraid of hormones, you know, and That's because it was the synthetic kind. But, before I knew what bioidenticals were, I was like, oh my God, hormones are dangerous and bad. And like, all right, well, do the research. That's your own belief. That doesn't mean it's the science. So
some hormones can be, yeah.
Some hormones can be. And if you don't detox them well, yes, anything can be, any drug or hormone will be dangerous. Yeah.
So that's an interesting aspect, the testing, because you talk about the testing that should be done before people go on hormone therapy. And this is something that I feel like is absent from the conversation. I feel like there's people being put on hormone therapy. No, none of my friends are getting any of the testing you talk about in your book. And none of my friends are getting any of the follow-up testing that you say is necessary in your book. So can you touch on that? What testing should we be getting before we go on hormone therapy?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love a good comprehensive blood panel because that is just going to look at your risk of inflammation, cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, nutrient deficiencies. I'm not looking to normalize, I'm looking to optimize every human that comes into my practice for the rest of their lives, basically. So, I list all the tests in my book, but it's, C-reactive protein, lipoprotein A, your insulin, your fasting glucose, your A1C, your homocysteine levels, your cholesterol and triglycerides are a piece of the picture. Certainly a comprehensive thyroid panel as well. A lot of women have a disrupted thyroid that really reveals itself in menopause. So I look at comprehensive thyroid testing, not just a TSH. All of those are really important. And then the Dutch test and the GI map test are the two that I run in practice. Like every person in my practice gets these tests, and very few practitioners do all of the tests that I do and I think it's a huge oversight for most people. It's a benefit to working with me in practice. So the Dutch test is a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. So this is going to look at your production of hormones. Over the course of 16 hours, I take 5 urine samples and you look at literally the downstream metabolites of your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So you can see how is it moving through phase 1 and 2 of liver detox. A blood test cannot show that at all. The Dutch test also looks at your methylation pattern, so at pathways. So again, how supportive are you? Are you estrogen dominant? Which, by the way, spoiler alert, people, you can still be estrogen dominant in menopause. Even if your levels are low, they can still be higher relative to your other forms of estrogen. So I look at the ratios of estrogens to each other. Then I also look at your cortisol curves. That gives me a real window into your sleep and your adrenal function. And I look at the neurotransmitters in your brain. I do what's called Dutch Complete. So I look at the neurotransmitters in your brain to see, are you making melatonin? Are you, producing serotonin and dopamine? Are you wildly nutrient deficient? And the cool thing is a lot of times is it tracks with my blood tests. So they speak to each other. I can see nutrient deficiencies across the board. Someone with a high homocysteine and low B6 and B12 and folate on the Dutch, it's, the two go hand in hand. So that's step 1. And then step 2 is the GI map. And this looks at your microbiome. This tells me the integrity of your gut wall. If you've got inflammation and a leaky gut and gluten intolerance, if you have bacterial overgrowth or pathogens or parasites. Most importantly, it tells me if you're detoxing estrogen or reabsorbing it in the gut wall. And if you've got a lot of inflammation going on. I see this in men and women. I don't treat really men much now, but back in the day, I could even see men who were estrogen dominant on the Dutch and the GI map. So then once I have those test results, then I can put together a comprehensive diet and supplement plan that's really customized. It's like couture versus off the rack. But also, if you need hormones, if you're a candidate and if your methylation pathways are good, then I partner you with a doctor who can prescribe these hormones or work with your current doctor. And a lot of doctors scoff at the Dutch, but you can look in PubMed. There's a couple of papers showing that the Dutch results in urine are just as reliable and accurate as blood levels. So it's I've been using it for years. It's been pretty foolproof. I wouldn't have a private practice if I wasn't successful. And these tests are a huge piece of my success.
Well, they don't just scoff. They say, if you have a doctor who gives you the Dutch test, don't go to that doctor anymore. Like they say, it's the same way they say there's no such thing as adrenal exhaustion. I had someone on social media when I said I had adrenal exhaustion. Can you explain to me why you say there's no adrenal exhaustion? I had a very prominent gynecologist say, like, just message me and I'll explain it to you. And I felt like saying, you're going to explain to me how I had adrenal exhaustion, but it wasn't adrenal exhaustion. And I had a Dutch test that helped me heal from it. And that wasn't helpful. Like, that's very, very confusing.
And what did she say?
I didn't want to, why would I want to have her explain to me why, like, why would I want to have this person explain to me why the thing that happened to me didn't happen to me?
Well,
like,
amen. Yes.
That's what I thought was well, this person has a huge following. It's a huge following, Esther. Like, we know these doctors that have huge.
We should talk offline. It's probably the same doctor, but
they're not testing. They're not testing for any of this stuff. They're not testing the metabolizing. They're not testing the methylation. And I'm not a doctor. That's just very worrying to me, because what happens? What happens if the pathways aren't right, and then you go on hormone therapy? What happens then?
Then you feel a lot worse. You can have breast tenderness, more irritability, insomnia. You can have, worse brain fog. Some women tell me they literally thought they were going crazy, or it triggered depression. It triggers anxiety. I mean, there's all sorts of mental health changes. Like, it's a tightrope. So you don't want to screw around, and you do want to make sure you support methylation, or you clean up a fatty liver. That's something else. I see about 32%, I think is the stat, of women develop non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, even if they're not drinking, but the drinking's not helping. So, you really want to make sure you have a system of checks and balances to say, are you even a candidate? Like, you don't just slap everyone on hormones. You do need to do testing.
So gut health and the fatty liver, I was very interested in that because I have a fatty liver. I don't drink, and I eat really well. None of the reasons that people say I have a fatty liver are my reasons. Do you know what I mean? Like, sorry, my cat's having a conversation. She has some questions, but I can't understand what they are.
Let's get her on the panel. Bring her on. Let's see what she has to say for herself.
I was digressing there. I'm so interested in fatty liver because what everyone tells me why I have a fatty liver, it's not, I don't do those things, right? Like I'm active. I don't know what it is, but I had thoughts about that. And I just listened to a podcast the other day that said there was a study that showed that estrogen in a fatty liver can actually make it worse. So you are slapping estrogen on a fatty liver that can't adequately process it. Is that, or detox it?
Yes.
Am I understanding that?
Absolutely. And, chronic illness can cause fatty liver too, and if someone's chronically ill, by the way, let's say you've got Lyme or Epstein-Barr, toxic mold exposures, it's not a bad idea to wait until you clean up the stealth infections first and then go on hormone therapy. So it is like you do want to treat it like a drug, even if it's bioidentical and plant-based and biocompatible with your body. You're still putting someone on a substance. It's the same with nutrients too. Like, you don't, first do no harm. You really want to make sure someone is a candidate first.
Yeah. And the gut,
you do it.
I thought I was very close to going on hormone therapy, and then just happened to be diagnosed with SIBO that I got after I had surgery. So all the symptoms were very similar to perimenopause. And this is the thing, is a lot of the symptoms for a lot of these things, they are similar, right? They're brain fog, they're fatigue. So it's like, would you say it's like, look at your gut, look at your liver, get tested before you make those decisions? It's a process though, because people are feeling bad now. Like,
it is a process. And the better your gut function is going into perimenopause or menopause, the better your experience will be, because there is a subset of bacteria in your gut called the estrobolome. And these are the bacteria that naturally help you metabolize and poop out excess hormones that you're not using every day. So But here's the cool thing, Emery. I had a client who had like really same thing, similar to you, like fatty liver, really sluggish detox pathways, and had so many things go on with her gut. I said, I will just be overloading you on supplements if I treat your gut and your hormones. So we're going to start with your gut first. And just clearing out her infections and rebuilding the integrity of her gut wall, like supporting her digestive fire, her hot flashes resolved. And we didn't even treat, and the brain fog too, really improved her energy. And we didn't even treat the hormones or the adrenal situation. So there's ways to go about it, right? Also, if you have severe adrenal fatigue and you try to detox your gut, you can also feel worse. So you definitely need to be on adrenal support at least 2 to 3 weeks before. And Dr. Dan Kalish talks about this a lot, but before you undertake any kind of cleanse or detox or kill off phase, you have to be on good adrenal support. And then throughout your healing process too, you need to be on good adrenal support. But the good news is, like, you can rebuild your cortisol curve and your adrenals. I myself, like, I did Dutch tests for years where my cortisol was pretty flat. I mean, there was like almost no curve at all. And now I have a curve because I got rid of Lyme, I got rid of mold, and I, working on my adrenals and started hormones. But it was, a while. It took a little while, but we did it all. So
yeah, but it's worth it.
Time. Oh,
it's worth it. If you're going to go, I worked on my gut, I healed it, and I feel 10 times better. I still will probably go on hormones, but I'm going to sort out the liver and then, but it's taking a long time. I mean, we're at a year now, but I think it's worth it because this is a long-term decision that you're making to go on the hormones. So
that's right.
Okay. So you've gone on hormones, and you said you were the second person that has said this. And the other person that said it's very smart too, Lara Bryden, she wrote a book called Your Hormone Repair Manual.
She's awesome.
You said, she's awesome. She's the only other person that's raised an alarm about drinking and being on hormone therapy. And you're the second person that I've read that's done it. You said this, can you explain what happens? Because I think a lot of women go on hormone therapy and start feeling better and start drinking again. So what's the caution there?
Every cocktail you have is going to raise your circulating estrogen levels for 4 to 6 hours after you drink it. So that means if you're good at math, which I'm not, but you'll spend about 25% of your day in an estrogen dominant state. So estrogen dominance, as we know, is, it's Goldilocks. Some is good. We want some estrogen, but too much is going to make you irritable, breast tenderness, weight gain, water retention, bloated, emotional. So you don't want too much. So not only that, but think about this way. Your liver has to choose. Am I going to detox hormones or am I going to detox alcohol? Well, alcohol is far more of a toxin in the mind of the liver. So it's going to detox your alcohol first, get it out. So your estrogens is hanging out in the back burner, just floating around your bloodstream at higher levels. And so, yes, if you are at risk for fatty liver too, obviously you're going to want to put the pause on drinking. So here's my approach, right? I'm not going to lie and say I never drink, because that would be BS and absolutely untrue. But I'm really judicious, like day to day, I really don't drink. I'll have some, I always make Cosmos for Thanksgiving. That's just what I do. I'll have a Cosmo, or like on an anniversary, or, I don't even drink all the time on New Year's anymore. But I'm so judicious. There's so few and far between, and most people can tolerate that. But if you want to abstain completely, knock yourself out. I mean, I find personally, I'm so much more productive, so much more present in my life. My body composition is better. Because the other problem with alcohol is it does put the pause on fat burning for up to 4 days after each cocktail. So if you have put on weight during menopause or find it's much harder to lose it, alcohol is really going to slow down that process. And I do have clients who have lost weight while drinking, but they're also working out 2 hours a day, no joke, and following a very carb restricted diet. So bear in mind, everyone's metabolically unique, but I don't see anyone's body composition really improving when they're drinking every day.
I've never been able to lose a pound when I've been drinking alcohol. I've never known how people have been able to do that. I know people used to go to Weight Watchers and they would say, well, I'm supposed to keep drinking because, I'm supposed to keep my habits that I would normally have. Like, I can't.
That's an interesting outlook. I got to try that one on for size.
Yeah, that's what they would say at Weight Watchers, whatever. Okay. So I want to get onto food in a minute, but you said you have a lot of problems from people who've been on the pill, and you talk about the difference between progesterone and progestin. And can you just talk a little bit about that and how you don't want to go on the pill, in your opinion, at this time, which is what a lot of doctors might suggest?
So the pill and the IUD are designed to suppress ovulation. And what we need to ovulate is a robust production of progesterone. So the pill, the IUD, tends to suppress progesterone. And that is not as problematic in a younger woman who's maybe in her 20s or 30s. But once you hit your mid 40s is usually around the time when progesterone begins to decline. When progesterone declines, you get that irritability, you're not sleeping as well, because progesterone is a precursor to GABA, which is a very calming neurotransmitter. Like progesterone is like the kitten, the soft purring kitten, and estrogen's like the tiger. So when you have declining progesterone levels and you're on a chemical birth control that is further suppressing your progesterone levels, what happens? Well, we certainly get a lot of anxiety. We can get heavy bleeds because there's no progesterone to oppose that estrogen. And, we can feel pretty crummy, pretty exhausted all the time. So a lot of women say, well, I've been on the IUD for so many years now. Like I've been the IUD since I've had my kids in my 30s, and now I'm 50. What if I take that out? I'm worried all hell is going to break loose. So for those people, again, we find a good functional GYN for them to work with, or MD. In those cases, we really talk about bringing in progesterone while you're on the IUD, waiting until you're more menopausal, and then, weaning off the IUD, coming off or weaning off the pill, and then slowly adding in bioidentical progesterone. Estrogen in addition to progesterone. Oftentimes women still do hot flash and go through withdrawal because bioidentical hormone replacement is given at a dose that's like a fifth of the pill. So often your body is like, I don't know what's happening. I still feel like I'm going through withdrawal even with hormonal support. Other women do come off, prior to menopause, they do come off the IUD and the pill. And then again, that's why the Dutch is helpful, even if it's not 100% accurate in terms of your baseline, because you are on a chemical birth control. At least we know where you're at and just start there, and then you can retest it down the line. But the benefits are, with bioidentical progesterone, that is the only form that is going to give you those mental health benefits. Whereas synthetic progesterones, they don't touch your GABA receptors. They're not going to help you sleep or stay any calmer.
Okay. It's amazing to me still how many people just say progesterone and don't make any distinction. Even some of the medical studies, when you read them, it's like you can't find out what they were using. They just say progesterone. It's difficult to even know what they were studying. And that's, to me, like, that's where research needs to go.
Yeah, well, and in the studies in the back of the book, it specifically states whether they're using bioidenticals or not. That's usually how you know. It's like organic. If it's not, unless it says organic, it's usually not. It's probably the same with hormones.
Yeah. Okay, so food-wise, I recently, old habits die hard, and I controlled my weight in my 40s and 30s by eating low carb. Like, eating, to me, meat, vegetables, fish, vegetables, a little, I've never been scared of fruit, but not a ton of fruit. And then I've been eating like that and eating like that. And I came back from the summer and I got a meal plan and my energy was in the absolute toilet. And then I was researching about the fatty liver and found this duo that were talking about sort of pro-metabolic eating. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try. In 2 days, I felt better from eating potatoes. I had some sourdough bread. I had some rice. My energy was like, it was crazy. And they said, like low carb eating is not great for fatty liver. And for this time of life, I've heard this over and over from some of my favorite nutritional friends in the social media space, but you're always still like, yeah, but not for me. Like I need to eat low carb. So I noticed in your book, you talk about eating carbs and eating carbs even at night. So for us at this time, can you just tell us why we need to do this?
Yeah. And a lot of women come to me doing keto or having tried keto because, it does really help in a good percentage of women. It does stop the hot flashes. But after about 3 months, your adrenals and your thyroid wise up, and you do need carbohydrates to convert T4 to T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. So it is time to rethink. And lucky you, Anne-Marie, because most people are like, oh, I got to cut way back on carbs, and you've got to add them in. Your adrenals really love, protein by day and carbs at night, but some people feel well just having small amounts of carbs throughout the day. So you want to think about having, you can have a cup of fruit or some cooked oats in the morning, or a more complex starch. Some people like sweet potatoes in the morning. But for the most part, I like to have lunches very low carb, maybe some beans or chickpeas on a salad. But other than that, dinner is really a good meal to have carbs at night, like a sweet potato, winter squash, quinoa, beans and legumes, if your gut can handle it. So, and of course, vegetables. So why carbs at night? Because you do get a slight bump in insulin. Even with good carbs, you could still get a slight bump in insulin if you're having, 40 grams with a meal. And what that does is the rise in insulin tamps down cortisol. So you sleep. It also raises your serotonin and dopamine. So it really supports brain biochemistry. Some of my clients, I have them eat, a teaspoon or two of honey with sea salt before bed. And that also really helps them sleep, or like half a banana with nut butter. So I use carbs to really support your brain biochemistry. And it really works for a lot of women. And especially if they've been low carb for so long, like their body composition really is improved by adding in carbs.
It feels weird. It feels wrong, but you're right about the sleep.
If that's wrong, I don't want to be right.
I know. Oh, I was eating rice the other day. I felt like I was having a party. Like it was like, woo.
Oh my God. I have a very long, healthy relationship with carbs. So
I'm glad you have a very reasonable approach. You have a really reasonable approach to everything. So what do you see on social media that drives you nuts about this conversation? Or
where to begin? I mean, there's a lot. There's, for the most part, I really follow a lot of like the top people in the field. I think the biggest thing is just these quick promises overnight and these massive amounts of restriction. Like, I don't know any woman that has the bandwidth for restriction by the time she's in her 50s and has tried a million diets. And I really want to see women in the space be far more empowered and not feeling small. The most fascinating thing, I've just probably done about 50 podcasts with this book launch, and everyone keeps saying that this is the time when women feel invisible, and this is a time when women, are ignored. I'm not seeing that. Maybe I'm not looking for it, but I'm like, I actually could not disagree more. You look at Michelle Obama was just on the cover of People talking about menopause. I can't imagine anything normalizing that more. You've got your, whole celebrity A-list normalizing it. Like, and people say, well, why isn't this talked about? I think it's not talked about, not because anyone's hiding or running from shame. It's just, honestly, there's a lack of knowledge from doctors. They are not our primary go-to. And we're finding people are learning more about menopause on Instagram and YouTube than they are in their own doctor's offices. And that's a problem to me.
I am so glad to hear you say that about
problem.
The visibility. Like, I don't feel like that at all. I mean, I know obviously if people feel like that, but I sometimes wonder if people are repeating some sort of narrative that they believe rather than it's actually happening. Or at this time of life, like, I feel like I've written about this before. It's like, it's not someone else's job to see me. Like, it's an inside job to be seen, to feel worthy. And I sometimes think it's a very common beginning of a journalist story about menopause, right? It happens in Britain all the time. They go into a store and the clerk didn't notice them. It's always that sort of a beginning to the column, like but I always think, well, maybe the clerk was busy. Like, if you believe people aren't seeing you, that's a belief you have in yourself. Like, that's what needs the work, not society isn't seeing me. Because you're right, the evidence is everywhere.
Yeah. And confidence, the confidence piece is really an inside job. And to me, it's a shame when a woman says, I've gained all this weight and I don't want to be seen in front of my husband. Let me tell you, ladies, something. There is never a man that has turned down his wife for being naked in front of him. Okay. Let's just get that out there. They still love you. Yes. They may notice you've gained weight, but guess what? A lot of times they may not even notice, okay? Or they don't notice your cellulite or your veins. So it's really just kind of saying, this is where I am now. This is me. I may not feel like I'm at my ideal, but that doesn't mean I'm any less worthy to be loved or give love. I'm still there's no reason why I can't receive or still be a complete badass at what I'm doing and what I contribute to the world. So it's so much of our identity is wrapped in looks. I think the other thing the pandemic was so interesting for was that so many women let their natural color come through. They stopped dyeing their hair because salons weren't, they didn't want to risk going into a salon. And I think that is so incredible. These women are showing their gorgeous silver hair now. And, and that's really empowering. Like, you look at women on the red carpet, there's Helen Mirren and there's Andie MacDowell, and there's all these amazing women that are just you know what, this is me. This is what I'm doing. And I feel like if you're not confident in menopause, when will you be? Because to me, every decade I get more and more powerful and comfortable in my own skin, lose my filter all the more. This is a great time of owning it,
Yeah. That's the work that I think people need to do. And, I haven't been married. I don't have kids. So I've been single for the last couple of years. And I can say I've had long relationships, but there's been long periods being single. I have had way more attention in the last couple of years than I had previously. And I have felt better and I have met better people. And I know it's all I'm getting older. I'm not as young or whatever as I used to be. But so that's why I think it has nothing to do. It's inside. It absolutely is. I have N of one or whatever is,
N of one. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been conducting my own lifelong experiment. So people don't believe me. Even I can see the disbelief when I'm telling people that, but I'm that's what's happened. So.
Well, that's what you attract. There was that Sex and the City episode where they basically said your taxi light is on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your light is on, and you do attract. No one ever is going to give you permission to say, okay, Anne-Marie, now that you're 50 years old, now you have permission to shine. No, it's the same thing with starting a business or starting any venture. You have to believe it and want it and claim it as yours and be hello, I'm here, world. This is me. And that's how you attract, powerful people and situations and bring adventures and goodness into your life. And if you're sitting focusing on every dimple of cellulite, you're going to live a very unhappy life.
We all did too much of that when we were young, I think.
Exactly. So that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Now I'm well, all right. Moving on. Moving on. Tuck it all in your pants and move on.
Well, you're a great role model, and your book is really, it's just really helpful, and it lays it all out there. And there's a lot of interesting cutting edge information in there, because I've read quite a few books. So congratulations. And thank you for being a role model and talking to me and us.
Thank you for having me on. I was so excited to connect with you, truly.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Here, I'll just...
Do we want to offer your list